Kratos, the god of war, a mountainous man of might and muscle, his skin forever stained white with the ashes of his family. A family slaughtered by his own hand, misled and enraged. In the original games, Kratos was mostly a one-dimensional character. His pursuit of revenge was all the player needed to indulge in the game's brutal combat. It was a high-octane, fuck yeah kind of game that never needed to be more than what it was. It didn't need any emotional investment from you, and that was fine. It was designed to be fun. As the next generation rolled through, we didn't see much about the God of War come up. It seemed like the franchise had run its course. Then, in 2016, we got this.
Your mother's knife.
Wait.
It belongs to you now.
Wait.
What for?
A test. She taught you to hunt, yes?
Yes, sir.
Then show me what you know.
Now at first, it's truly hard to see this Kratos as the same person. If it weren't for his iconic design, you wouldn't even recognize him as the neck-snapping madman he was in the previous games. We've seen older games revived with a new approach and fail. But we've also seen franchises go back to their roots and thrive in a modern market. But God of War didn't want to retread the same water. Santa Monica wanted to cast a new light on this iconic figure in gaming. And I'm sure some were let down by this new approach. But under the guidance of Cory Barlog, everything fell into place. I've heard the complaint that these more story-focused games play themselves. Rudgin, why make a game when you could just make a movie? And sometimes it's hard to get both gameplay and story up to equal levels of quality. I can admit that though The Last of Us told one of the best stories in gaming, it wasn't that special on a gameplay front. And if we're being honest with ourselves, the gameplay was rather generic. But with God of War, both its story and moment-to-moment gameplay were equally as rich in depth and quality. We start the game with the knowledge that Kratos has a son, that his wife has died and they are living a rather secluded life in the wilderness. One aspect that I feel is overlooked is Kratos is in mourning. He's presented as this grumpy, strict father figure, but part of that is due to his sadness for the loss of his wife. And the game focuses more on his son's grief, and he takes center stage on that front. But Kratos is equally shattered by this, but displays it in a different way. A more internal way. Now, that takes a lot of restraint from a writer's standpoint, and the way they did it was simply masterful. As artists, we tend to over-dramatize in order for maximum effect. We often don't give the audience enough credit to understand the subtleties. Look at the scene in The Last of Us where Joel's daughter dies. That scene took a long time to get right. Troy Baker said that he looked at that scene as a chance to really show off his acting chops, so he would perform it with a lot of emotion, a lot of screaming and yelling and crying, and put a lot of exuberance into the performance. But Neil Druckmann felt that that approach just wasn't working. So they do it again and again until Neil said that was enough. Later on in production, Neil approached Troy and said, "Hey, we need to do that scene again." And at first, Troy was somewhat taken back by this. He felt the scene was done. He felt he gave a moving performance. So reluctantly, he went at it again, and each time they dialed it down to make it more of a quiet moment. Later in an interview, Troy discussed how he learned a lot of humility from that experience, how his attempt to showcase his dramatic acting skills got in the way of what the moment needed to be, and how following Neil's direction to tone down this moment grounded him and ultimately made him a better actor because of it. In God of War, we are shown a different Kratos, an older Kratos, a more mature Kratos. And we see a man, not a god. We see a father doing his best given the circumstances. He becomes relatable. His second chance at fatherhood has changed him. He's overprotective, he's strict, and for the first time in the series, He's caring. He definitely shows it in his own way because he's guarded. Ultimately, he's a broken man and he's built walls to protect himself. He doesn't want the pain of losing his family to ever affect him like that again. But we see a new, nurturing side to him. We as the player have a unique perspective. We know where he's come from, we know what he's done, and we know what he's lost. But Atreus has only ever seen Kratos as he's presented in this game, and that gives us a different lens to view him from. Atreus doesn't know he's a god. He doesn't know about his past and simply sees him as his dad. We see him teach the boy how to hunt and how to kill, and we are shown just how different these two really are. Atreus is almost everything Kratos is not. He's playful and kind, he's soft and sympathetic, and this is often a main point of contention. And they beautifully learn from each other as they tackle and overcome obstacles because of this. The most important point in their story is when Atreus gets sick. This is where we see the most authentic and genuine version of Kratos. He's scared and vulnerable, he's desperate and honest with himself. His entire exterior is stripped away in this moment. This is the moment he understands just how much he loves his son. And if he loses him, then he has failed as a parent once again. This part of the game really resonated with me because I can relate. I've been through things in my life that have changed how I present myself to others. I was in a relationship for 4 years. It was the first real relationship I had after the girl before shattered me. I rebuilt myself in a way so that I'd never feel that way again. But in doing so, I walled off a piece of me to protect it. And because of that, I never really showed this person how much I truly cared for them and needed them. I was too scared to open up like I had before out of a selfish fear of hurt, and it became one of the factors in our separation. She felt I wasn't as committed as she was due to my inability to show her certain sides of me. And because of this, she left. In my self-centered fear of opening up and being hurt again, I led myself right back to that conclusion. I'm glad we're seeing men portrayed in this way in video games. The super muscular men still have their place, but seeing games explore the fragility of men is admirable and ultimately needed, especially in today's climate. Kratos is a broken man, and this game does a great job at showing him how important love is. Love in any medium doesn't have to be sappy or corny if done right. And love is the most important thing we get to experience in our lives. It took a lot of balls to show Kratos in this light. If this had been done wrong, this game could have failed spectacularly and tarnished the legacy of these games. But with this new focus, it elevated this series to new heights and set an industry standard on how to tell a story in a video game. It will be interesting to see how the next installment will play out. Presumably, we will see Kratos usher in Ragnarok, which will be a huge spectacle, but I hope they don't lose sight of the smaller moments that made this game so powerful.